The day before the wedding, my husband Jonathan suddenly said to me, "The wedding will be postponed by 1 week. I need to go on a business trip." Looking at my husband's cold expression, I could not help recalling the message his assistant had sent me last night. Jonathan wants to go on a trip around the world with me once before getting married. Big sis probably won't mind, right? I agreed to my husband's request and silently canceled the wedding. The next day, Jonathan and Zoe embraced passionately beneath the Eiffel Tower. I went to the hospital alone and aborted the child. On the third day, Jonathan and Zoe stood honestly before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Burj Khalifa. I told Jonathan's mother that from then on, I would no longer see him again. Chapter 1. Helen. Jonathan is probably just too busy with work. When he comes back, I'll definitely talk to him properly and make him apologize to you, Jonathan's mother said without even turning her head, all her attention on the manicure she was getting. To her, no matter how much I made a fuss, it did not matter. After all, I was already pregnant. As for Zoe's existence, she was probably overjoyed, because Zoe had started calling her mom even earlier than I had, saying mom long ago. As for me, the daughter-in-law who had not yet married into the family, perhaps I was only a tool for giving birth. I smiled bleakly and silently withdrew. I've already decided to let Jonathan and Zoe be together. She did not notice my departure at all. She did not even hear what I said. Helen, Jonathan is the company president. There will always be situations where he has to play along socially. Everything is for your future home. You have to be understanding. Otherwise, even without Zoe, there will be other women in the future. If you get angry every time, sooner or later you'll damage your health with all that anger. You're pregnant now. Other than Jonathan, who else would want you? These are all lessons from someone who has been through it. She kept talking to herself. While I had already left the villa, I gently placed my hand on my stomach. Because there was a child, they felt they could do whatever they wanted. After all, I was like a kite tied with a string. No matter how much I struggled, I could not escape from the palm of their hands. But now, the kite string they were so proud of, I was about to break free from it. After returning home, I lay on the bed and silently shed tears, not knowing when I fell asleep. Half awake and half asleep, Jonathan came back. He pulled me into his arms and took out a necklace, placing it around my neck. A wedding gift. Do you like it? I lowered my head and glanced at the necklace. I had to admit, this necklace bought in Paris really was beautiful. If I had not seen this necklace in Zoe's moments, I probably would have been very happy. Only, in Zoe's moments, there were 6 necklaces in total, and the one Jonathan gave me was the cheapest one, the one Zoe disliked the most. In Zoe's interactions with other people in her moments, she had said, "This 180,000 yuan necklace is just a free gift that came with Blue Lover." If Jonathan hadn't told me to keep it, I would have thrown it away. Yes, this necklace of mine was nothing more than a free gift that came with that masterwork worth over 10 million yuan. Blue Lover. I silently took off the necklace. You even remembered to bring back Zoe's free gift for me. How thoughtful. Jonathan's body behind me stiffened slightly, and his tone turned cold. It was just social acting. Why are you being so petty? I said indifferently. You don't have to work so hard either. What does anything you do have to do with me? Jonathan became somewhat angry. We're about to get married, and you insist on making a scene like this, don't you? You don't want to get married anymore, is that it? Before I became pregnant, Jonathan had never dared speak to me like this, but now, I could hear the meaning inside and outside his words. Since you're pregnant, behave yourself. Other than him, no one would want me. I was so angry I could hardly speak, and I wanted to lay everything bare. But the sound of Jonathan slamming the door heavily was already echoing through the room. Early the next morning, as soon as I woke up, I found that Jonathan was already sitting by the bed. There was a breakfast placed on the bedside table. He always thought this way, no matter how angry I was. As long as he gave me a way out, I would follow that step down. This seemed to have already become a fact he was certain of. Perhaps I had truly been too tolerant before. Tolerant to the point that he thought it was only natural and did not cherish it at all. I ignored him and directly got up to change clothes. Jonathan's expression stiffened slightly. If it were Zoe, I don't know how happy she would be. He picked up the breakfast and began tasting it by himself. I did not know when it started, but Jonathan had already begun to think I could not leave him, no matter what I did. It seemed to him that I was only fighting with Zoe for his favor, trying to get his attention. For the past few years, I had actually been so hopelessly unable to extricate myself from him. How ridiculous. Fortunately, it would not happen again in the future. Chapter 2. After the anesthesia wore off, I lay alone on the hospital bed. I looked at every woman around me, each accompanied by someone. At their most vulnerable moment, someone was gently comforting them, bringing them tea and water. As for me, even if I wanted to go to the restroom, I could only force myself to endure the pain in my lower abdomen and stagger there on my own. And while I was staggering, the phone on the table rang. By the time I reached it, the call was almost disconnected. As soon as I answered, my manager's scolding came crashing down on me. Helen, where the hell did you go? I'm telling you, get to the company within half an hour. Jonathan just inspected the company. In the entire company, you were the only one absent. Because of you, the bonuses of everyone in the department have all been deducted. If you can't arrive at your post within half an hour, all of your colleagues' days off this month will be cancelled. Listening to the voice on the other end of the phone, my heart felt desolate. Jonathan had once used the excuse that he hoped to see me every day to arrange for me to work at his company. But after all these years, among so many people in the company, not a single person knew about my relationship with him. As for what he was doing today, it already had nothing to do with me. I spoke calmly. I resign. The manager on the other end froze for a moment, then became even more furious. Helen, do you think you're Zoe's assistant? Do you think you have some special relationship with Jonathan? You're even acting like a big shot now. I'm telling you, you must get back here today. Otherwise, even if you want to resign, I guarantee I'll drag it out for at least a year, in order to be free as soon as possible. I returned to the company weekly. Jonathan finally went public with his assistant. As soon as I entered the company, I heard my colleagues' discussions. When Jonathan inspected the company today, he had his arm around her the whole time. So sweet. The love story of an aloof, domineering CEO and his sweet assistant. At that moment, one colleague suddenly spoke up. I have even more explosive news here. Everyone's eyes turned toward him. What news? Don't keep us in suspense. The colleague cleared his throat. Jonathan is preparing to hold a wedding. It's just a few days from now. The colleagues burst into an uproar. Wow. No wonder Jonathan took Zoe on a business trip a few days ago. Didn't you see Zoe's moments? They went on an early honeymoon. Clearly, Jonathan had done this on purpose. He deliberately made me come back to the company, then get jealous and angry. He wanted me to be unable to bear it and go make a scene with him. Then, just like before, he would coax me a little, and the matter would be over. Only now, I no longer loved him. I silently wrote my resignation letter. The manager signed it readily. It's best that you leave. This way, I don't have to consider whether to take you to Zoe's birthday banquet the day after tomorrow. As he spoke, he stood up and clapped his hands. The day after tomorrow. Everyone gets the day off. Jonathan has invited all employees to attend Zoe's birthday banquet. My hand trembled slightly as I accepted the proof of resignation. The day after tomorrow was the wedding date I had once looked forward to. I thought I would no longer feel pain. But at this moment, my heart still felt as if it were being cut by a knife. Chapter 3. After the miscarriage, I was so weak that I truly did not have the strength to pack my things. I could only rest at home for one more night. Late at night, Jonathan came back, reeking of alcohol. He had his arm around Zoe. When he saw me lying on the bed, he gave a cold laugh. Get out, tonight. This place belongs to Zoe. His tone was contemptuous, as if he were giving an order to a servant, and Zoe had also shed the innocent, adorable image she showed in front of others, wearing sexy lingerie. She kept burrowing into Jonathan's arms. Helen. Sorry, Jonathan and I drank too much today and don't feel like changing places. Let us borrow your bedroom. Oh, right. Helen, I heard Jonathan say you're not very good in bed. Why don't you stay and learn a little? Rage almost swallowed me whole. My body trembled uncontrollably. Jonathan's gaze was arrogant and full of interest. Jonathan, Helen seems angry. Did I say something wrong just now? Hearing that, Jonathan pulled her into his arms. How could anything you say be wrong? Usually, she's like a dead fish. You and I are much more compatible. I got up angrily, pushed the two of them away, and walked toward the door. Oh my, Helen is so strong, Zoe cried out sweetly. So her waist is this thick too. No wonder she has so much strength. I looked at my waist, which had grown thicker because of pregnancy, and felt desolate inside. Jonathan wrapped his arm around Zoe and kissed her. Enough. A woman's waist always gets thicker after pregnancy. In the future, you'll still have to satisfy me in her place. Helen is really something. I clearly helped her. And not only does she not thank me, she even bullies me. The bedroom door was not closed. And soon, gasps echoed through the room. I did not want to listen, but I was truly too weak, so I could only lie down in the guest room. The thick wall could not block out their movements at all. Those wanton sounds filled my eardrums. I did not know how much time had passed. Jonathan hugged me from behind. His voice was full of desire. Helen, stop being angry. You know that the person I love is you. You've been too cold to me lately. I only used Zoe to provoke you a little. I don't have the slightest feeling for her. His voice was burning hot, as if the indulgence just now had not satisfied him. I irritably tried to push him away, but my weak body had barely any strength. His hands began wandering over my body, skillfully trying to stir my desire. Once, I had been unable to free myself from it, but now I knew that all of this was nothing more than his lust. My weak resistance seemed to ignite his anger. Finally, he could no longer control himself and turned over, pressing me beneath him. A heavy slap landed on my face. Helen, don't go too far with this tantrum. I felt the burning pain on my face and spoke coldly. You didn't even wash. The smell of alcohol and that dirty woman on you is disgusting. The next second, another slap landed on my face. He gripped my neck tightly. Helen, so you refuse the toast only to drink the punishment wine. Is that it? In my weakened state, I was almost powerless to resist. Like a beast in heat, he violently broke through my defenses. The pain in my lower abdomen almost made me faint. With no other choice, I bit Jonathan's ear, hoping he would stop, but what followed was slap after slap. To prevent me from resisting, he gripped my throat harshly. The pain in my lower abdomen and the suffocating feeling almost made me pass out. My cries grew softer and softer, and my body lost all strength. Only then did Jonathan seem to come back to his senses. He stopped moving. His lips opened and closed several times. In the end, however, he said nothing and left the room directly. I curled up in pain for a long time. The sheets were soaked with sweat. The sheet beneath my lower abdomen was full of bright red. My heart completely died. Chapter 4. The next morning, the pain finally faded. I lay on the bed, booked a plane ticket, carelessly put on some clothes, went downstairs, and came to the living room. I was truly terribly weak. After walking only a few steps, I wanted to sit down and rest for a while. Just as I was moving with difficulty, Zoe came downstairs. She was dressed up beautifully, her whole body brimming with pure, youthful energy. As for me, my face was as pale as morning clothes, and I was as weak as someone on the verge of death. We were clearly the same age, yet I seemed to have aged by decades. Because of the same man, we had ended up so vastly different. When Zoe saw me, she came before me without the slightest politeness. What? Are you still here waiting for Jonathan to coax you? Jonathan went to work. If you have anything to say, I'll show mercy and pass it on to Jonathan for you. I glanced at her indifferently, not understanding why even she thought I was merely making a fuss. Merely trying to attract Jonathan's attention. What? Can you make decisions for Jonathan? I spoke coldly, but Zoe became smug. Of course, I'm his assistant, his lover. Whether it's work, love, or desire, I can satisfy him, and you're nothing more than a tool for giving birth. I swept an indifferent glance over her. It won't be long before someone just like you replaces your position. When Zoe heard this, she laughed so hard she could barely straighten her waist. Do you know what the biggest difference between you and me is? It's that I understand Jonathan has no shortage of women. No one can stay with him for a lifetime. Only an idiot like you would fantasize about spending the rest of your life with Jonathan. Wake up. You're ugly. Your figure is bad. And yet you daydream every day. I gave a contemptuous laugh. Once upon a time, a woman like Zoe would not have even been able to lift her head in front of me. I had given so much, only to end up with this result. Perhaps my contemptuous laugh provoked her. Helen, I don't know what you're pretending for. Aren't you just after money and benefits? How much better than me do you think you are? Jonathan is mine now. You're already out. I mocked her. Then I wish the two of you a harmonious marriage for 100 years and an early child. Zoe still wanted to say something, but then she heard the sound of the door opening at the entrance. Her expression suddenly became somewhat panicked, and she abruptly grabbed my hand. The moment the door opened, she fell backward. It happened to meet Jonathan's gaze perfectly. I was already weak, and after being pulled like this, I fell to the floor. Jonathan hurriedly ran over. He went around me and helped Zoe up. Tears gathered in Zoe's eyes. Helen, I understand. I'll leave right now. Her clumsy acting was full of flaws. But in an instant, Jonathan's gaze filled with distress for her, as well as anger toward me. Helen, apologize. I did not speak. I struggled to stand up, pulled my luggage, and was about to leave. Jonathan became furious and grabbed my arm. Did you not hear what I said? Apologize. You made a mistake and now you want to run. Helen, you disappoint me too much. I turned around with a cold laugh. She framed me, and yet you want me to apologize. Jonathan became completely furious and slapped me across the face. Helen, are you done making trouble? You don't want to get married anymore. Is that it? I suddenly turned my head back, my gaze refusing to yield even an inch. Then this marriage might as well not happen. Jonathan's eyes were bloodshot, as if fire were about to burst from them. Helen, who do you think you are? If not for the fact that you're still carrying a child in your belly, I wouldn't tolerate you like this. But if you keep using this matter to threaten me, you'll regret it. I laughed, tears covering my face. Yes, this had been his confidence all along. My laughter made a trace of panic flash through Jonathan's eyes. In the end, his expression gradually softened, and he stepped forward, just about to say something, but I interrupted him. No need, Jonathan. The child is already gone. From now on, you don't need to tolerate me anymore either. Chapter 5. As soon as my words fell, both Jonathan and Zoe froze. Immediately afterward, wild joy appeared in Zoe's eyes, though there was temporarily no expression on her face. But I could see what she was thinking. The child was gone, which meant that perhaps she now had a chance at the position of Mrs. Jonathan. At worst, she could at least stay by Jonathan's side for a while longer. As long as she could stay a while longer, she could get more money from Jonathan. Jonathan's status and financial power indeed held a fatal attraction for many women. But none of that mattered to me. I only cared about Jonathan. Only now. The Jonathan I cared about was already gone. I turned around and wanted to leave. But after taking only a few steps, Jonathan grabbed me. His eyes were bloodshot, like a wild beast. Helen, what did you just say? Are you lying to me? Helen, I've really indulged you too much to get my attention. You even dare tell a lie like this. I indifferently took the surgical record from my bag and threw it directly at his face. He did not care about my behavior and caught the surgical record abruptly. His knuckles turned somewhat white from the force, and his body trembled slightly. Seeing this, I seized the chance to squeeze out a little strength and walk outside. Zoe also hurriedly stepped forward to comfort him. This was a rare opportunity for her, as long as she put in more effort. Perhaps she could even become pregnant with Jonathan's child. At that time, even if Jonathan found another woman, it would no longer matter to her. She only needed wealth and luxury. Speaking of it, she really was quite suited to Jonathan. Just as I was carrying my luggage and about to walk out of the villa's front door, Jonathan suddenly pushed away the fawning Zoe and chased after me. Helen, don't go. Even without the child, I'm still willing to marry you. We're still young. There's still time. Don't go. Helen. I had not expected that after Jonathan saw the child was gone, this would actually be his reaction. On the other side, Zoe had now truly been pushed to the floor, and this time, Jonathan did not even glance at her. I looked at Jonathan's somewhat anxious expression and only found it ridiculous and ironic. When I was by his side, he fooled around with other women without cherishing me at all. Now that I had decided to end everything completely, he became anxious and wanted me to stay. I gave a cold laugh and continued walking out on my own. Jonathan once again grabbed my arm. Helen, I was wrong. Don't go. Please don't go. Okay? I looked into his eyes. They were filled with panic and unease. It was clear he was not pretending. But did Jonathan himself not think it was a little too late? Jonathan, I suggest you go comfort your little assistant. After all, my leaving is already set in stone. If you don't comfort her now, she'll leave too. As soon as my words fell, Jonathan desperately shook his head, and the hand gripping my arm tightened even more. In my weakened state, I could not break free at all. Helen, no, Zoe and I were just playing around. Only you will become my wife. No one else is worthy. The series of changes made Zoe's expression, from where she sat on the floor, turn extremely ugly. I laughed coldly. Jonathan, don't you think everything you've done is truly a little laughable? If you still have even a shred of humanity, you should let go of me now. As my cold voice fell, Jonathan's face filled with mixed emotions, and he released my hand in a daze. Without looking back, I walked straight out of the villa. When I stepped out of the villa's front door, a trace of bitterness unconsciously surged in my heart. For so many years, I had devoted myself wholeheartedly to Jonathan and loved him so deeply that I could not free myself. I had wasted my youth, only to receive an ending like this. But now, I was going to start over. I was going to find the Helen I used to be. After returning home, I cast everything from before away completely. I cut off every trace related to Jonathan. After that, I recuperated for a full half year. Even the doctor sighed and said that period had truly been too dangerous. All that torment had nearly caused uterine prolapse and lifelong infertility. Later, my family arranged a job for me, but this job pulled me into another vortex. Only this time, the vortex seemed somewhat different from before. Not long after I joined the company, a president was parachuted in from above. His name was Simon. My colleagues gave him a beautiful nickname, Satan. Simon acted swiftly and decisively. Any change announced in the morning had to be implemented by the afternoon, and his own face was so cold it could freeze someone to death. Everyone's workload rose sharply, though of course, what also rose sharply was the salary and benefits. Just like that, in just over a month after I had entered the company turned losses into profits. I also learned many things and became an important member of the company. Later, I even became the president's assistant. Perhaps it was because I became an assistant that Jonathan found the company's address and came straight over. Chapter 6. Helen, I finally found you. I know I was wrong. During this period, I only just realized that you are the only one who has ever been sincere to me, and you are the only person worthy of my deep love. The very first moment Jonathan saw me, he dropped to one knee and took out the flowers and ring in his hands. Helen, forgive me. Can we start over? Naturally, this behavior drew the attention of my colleagues. Isn't that Jonathan from the G group? He's in a competitive relationship with our group. I follow him often. So romantic. Helen is really so lucky. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be able to resist marrying him. Look at the ring in his hand. It's custom made. I heard even the cheapest one costs 5 million. Listening to the discussions around him, the smile on Jonathan's face spread, and his eyes were full of joy. Oh my God, proposing with a ring worth at least 5 million. What girl could withstand that? And he's so deeply devoted too. Hurry up and pinch me awake. I must be dreaming. Perhaps every girl likes this kind of romantic plot. Even I was no exception. Of course, provided that the things from before had not happened. I looked coldly at Jonathan's behavior and had just been about to refuse. Suddenly, the door to the president's office opened. If I see any of you not working again and messing around with useless nonsense, go to finance yourselves, collect your salary, and get out. Simon pushed the door open and came out. His words utterly blunt. The colleagues instantly scattered in a rush. What surprised me even more was that Simon walked to my side and wrapped an arm around my waist. Jonathan, who allowed you to barge into my company to pursue my girlfriend? Simon's words left me frozen in place. Girlfriend? I was pretty sure I remembered that he and I did not even have each other on WeChat. But I quickly came back to my senses. I had been worrying about how to reject him, and now that Simon had appeared, wasn't this even better? Jonathan froze in place. After a short while, he suddenly laughed. Helen, sure enough, you still love me, don't you? You even learned a little trick like this. But Helen, I know you. Helen, I know I was wrong. Come back. Jonathan's confident appearance was truly nauseating. Jonathan, do you think I have to marry you and no one else? Look at yourself. In what way can you compare to my boyfriend? Family background? Ability? Faithfulness? Or skill in bed? Forgive me for being blunt, Jonathan, but there is not a single thing about you that can compare to Simon. Jonathan's face completely darkened, but he still gritted his teeth. I don't believe it. I immediately became so angry that I could barely speak. His shameless, unyielding appearance was disgusting. However, before I could think of how to respond, I felt the hand around my waist suddenly tighten. The next moment, Simon's lips landed on mine. I froze slightly, then my heart stirred, and I began to cooperate. The kiss lasted a full minute before it stopped. I coldly swept a glance over Jonathan, who was still kneeling there, then took Simon's arm and walked toward the office. Jonathan trembled slightly, but he still wanted to pester me stubbornly. He chased after me and grabbed my arm tightly. My arm hurt from his grip, and I could not help letting out a soft cry. Simon frowned and grabbed Jonathan's wrist. Jonathan, don't you see that you're hurting her? Then he flung him hard, and Jonathan was thrown by the huge force, falling to the floor, yet he seemed not to care at all and rushed forward. Helen, you're lying to me, right? Helen, how could you possibly be with him? Helen, I really know I was wrong. During this period, I've already reflected on myself. I've also fired Zoe. Now you're the only one in my heart. Come back, okay? We can get married immediately. I'll give you everything I have, okay? I looked at the ring in Jonathan's hand and gave a cold laugh. Jonathan, you even found choosing a ring troublesome. Do you think I don't know this ring was the one you ordered for Zoe back then? After saying this, I once again took Simon's arm and walked into the office. Jonathan still refused to let it go, but in front of Simon, he could not do anything at all. Simon stopped him, called security, and had Jonathan escorted out. Chapter 7. After that, Simon also returned to the office. I looked at his cold face, and suddenly my heartbeat began to beat somewhat out of control. The atmosphere inside the office suddenly became a little ambiguous. I did not know how much time had passed before I finally came back to my senses and hurriedly bowed to thank him. Boss, thank you so much for today. I'm truly grateful. From now on, I'll follow your lead in everything. However, Simon looked at me with a faint smile that was not quite a smile. No need to thank me. I was going to deal with him anyway. Simon said this indifferently, then gestured that I could leave. He did not tell me why he wanted to deal with Jonathan either, but that was no longer important to me. I originally thought the matter would end like this. Who would have thought that the next day, gossip about Simon and me would shoot to the top of the trending searches? Immediately, all the companies under Simon's family suffered serious impact. The company I worked at was naturally no exception. Because of this, everyone in the entire company was overwhelmed and frantic. After working until late at night, Simon finally told me to go to his office. It was finally time for the death sentence. Inside the office, Simon's expression looked somewhat tired. I heard from my colleagues that Simon's phone had not stopped ringing all day, so he had clearly handled quite a lot of matters. Boss, you called for me. I spoke anxiously. Simon gave a cold hum of acknowledgement. I did not dare speak again and waited for Simon's judgment. Simon answered another call. I could no longer hear the contents of the call clearly. My mind was filled with only 3 words: I'm finished. I did not know how long had passed before Simon finally hung up. He turned around and looked at me coldly, considering that yesterday's incident caused a major impact on the company. Therefore, I immediately felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. I truly liked this job. I had found my own value in it and identified with it very much. I hurriedly pleaded, Boss, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it. Please don't fire me. From now on, I'm willing to work like an ox or a horse for the company. I didn't say I was going to fire you. It's just that I don't know whether you can accept the company's arrangement. When I heard this, I was overjoyed. I accept. I accept. Of course I accept. I agree to any requirement. After saying this, I clearly felt a trace of joy flash through Simon's eyes. However, there was still not the slightest expression on his cold face. Good. Then from now on, you are my girlfriend. Next month, come home with me to get engaged. No problem. Huh, boss. What did you just say? I answered instinctively. Only after saying no problem did my brain finish processing all the information. And this time, I froze completely in place. Seeing me freeze, Simon walked forward. What are you spacing out for? Do you have any objections? I raised my head with difficulty to look at Simon. Seeing this, Simon frowned. To recover the company's public reputation, as long as you really are my girlfriend, everything will naturally be fine. I thought about it, and that seemed to be true. So what you mean is that we pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend for a while, right? I have no problem. I hurriedly stood up straight and answered, while feeling annoyed that I had misunderstood. Simon gave a cold hum of acknowledgement, but I clearly felt a trace of a different emotion on his face. Just like that, I played the role of Simon's girlfriend and attended various banquets. In the days that followed, his family began launching a full-scale attack against the G Group. 3 months passed, and the G Group fell into a huge crisis. They had no choice but to sell off a large amount of property just to barely survive, and I seemed to have become somewhat used to playing Simon's girlfriend. He was handsome, wealthy, faithful, and had certain smiles that only appeared in front of me. I could not help beginning to fantasize that if I truly became Simon's girlfriend, it seemed like it would not be bad. Chapter 8. Until the day the G Group completely lost and fell into becoming a third-rate company. Simon's family held a celebration banquet as the fake fiancé who was already fake engaged to him. Of course I had to attend. Simon wore a handsome formal suit, carried a faint smile, and held my hand as he walked into the banquet hall. Boss, don't keep smiling at me. On the way, I said this tentatively. Simon instantly frowned. I hurriedly explained. Boss never smiles at others, but you always smile at me. I feel like I'm misunderstanding something. Do you really like me? My heart was pounding wildly as I hinted in a roundabout way. However, before Simon could speak, the doors of the banquet hall were knocked open. Jonathan, unshaven and disheveled, barged in. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. After they realized it was Jonathan, someone quickly called security. After being restrained by security, Jonathan shouted, I'm not here to make trouble. I just want to see one person. Helen, come out and meet me, okay? Helen, I really know I was wrong. I'm about to go abroad with them, and I'm afraid I'll never see you again. Please, meet me once, okay? My body immediately tensed a little. I had always thought I had completely let go, but upon seeing this person, the anger in my heart still uncontrollably surged up. Simon seemed to sense something unusual in me. He gently patted my hand. It's okay, I'm here, but today, it's also time to bring this to an end. He stared into my eyes, and in his gaze was a kind of strength I had never received before. I understood what he meant and nodded gently. He brought me before Jonathan. When Jonathan saw me appear, he hurriedly shouted, Helen, you're finally willing to see me. I really know I was wrong. During this time, I've regretted it every single day. I've truly changed too. From now on, I'll give all my love to you. Forgive me and come back to my side, okay? Helen, I really can't live without you. Listening to those grating words, I frowned. Just as I was about to say something, Simon spoke first. Jonathan, out of respect for your uncle back then, I spared your family once, and now you still dare appear in front of Helen? Did I not warn you? It was because you hurt Helen that your family ended up where it is today. Was it my warning that you couldn't understand, Jonathan? Simon's few short sentences shook my heart violently. What did he mean that because Jonathan had hurt me, his family had ended up where it was today? I suddenly thought of something. Only a few days after I joined the company, Simon had suddenly been parachuted in. Jonathan, I'm warning you one last time. From now on, if you dare say any more useless nonsense to my fiancé, I guarantee your family will not be left with even a dog or chicken alive. Simon's words were filled with murderous intent. Jonathan stood in place and shuddered unconsciously. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but when the words reached his lips, he did not dare say them. He could only leave the banquet hall with his tail between his legs. After Jonathan left, Simon's gaze fell back on me again. Seeing me frozen in place, a trace of panic flashed through Simon's eyes. Helen, what's wrong? Are you okay? Even his words of concern trembled slightly. Boss, what you just said, because of me, that was why his family ended up like this? Simon suddenly fell silent. At that moment, someone suddenly walked up from behind. I was instantly overjoyed. It was my best friend, who had been abroad for many years. Helen, did you really forget this little chubby boy? I was struck as if by lightning. In my mind, I suddenly thought of the little chubby boy who had always followed behind me when we were children. Gradually, Simon's appearance and the little chubby boy's appearance overlapped. Finally, I remembered the name of that little chubby boy who would do anything I said and who held me in the palm of his hand. Simon, you. I was so shocked that I could not speak. Simon also suddenly became somewhat flustered. In the end, it was still my best friend who pushed him. If you keep being this cowardly, Helen might get hurt by another scumbag again. Hearing this, Simon felt extremely guilty. I'm sorry, Helen. All these years, I was too cowardly. I didn't dare confess my feelings to you. I always wanted to become better so I could be worthy of you. But because of my cowardice, you suffered so much harm. I don't want to keep thinking that way anymore. Helen, marry me. From now on, let me protect you forever.